we are laid, so that she could come and give us this vital information we need in this journey to financial freedom, to occupying until you come. We pray for her. Holy Spirit, speak through her, give her the right words. The Apostle Paul in Ephesians 6 prayed that words may be given unto me. We are also praying for Fiona that you give her the words. Give her the words she needs to speak to us. Give her the words which are fit for this audience. May be able to deliver what you have given her, what you have put on her heart, that we may understand it and that it may make us better and better in our businesses and in our personal lives. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. Over to you, Pastor Anthony.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joshua. I am the moderator for this morning.
So let the host co-host.
I would like to just thank everybody for making the time to come today for our series in as we go along. So I would just like to introduce our person for today, Miss, I don't know if I err, Miss or Mrs. Fiona Nuwamanya, and then I'll let you run, Miss Fiona. So Fiona has experience in financial and management aspects and continues to build and bring value to clients in both the private and development sectors. Her work revolves around driving structural changes in finance and management business processes. She is a professional, chartered certified accountant, or ACCA, with an MBA from Edinburgh Business School. She has previously worked as an auditor for Ernst & Young, that's a global audit firm, and has financial control and as a financial controller at Medical Access, Uganda. She has worked in over 15 countries and gained experience working with various donor programs, including USAID, PEPFAR, the Global Fund, and Gavi. She is a co-founder of Rocket Health and currently serves as the director in charge of finance, admin, and HR departments. Rocket Health is a telemedicine company that offers convenient doctor consultations 24/7 through chat, voice, video calls, coupled with last mile lab sample collection, testing, pharmacy prescription delivery. She is also the proprietor of several other businesses, that is TWAM Synergies and TWAM Financial Services, among others. Fiona is passionate about creating and running businesses and has gained experience in creating business strategies, managing the process of implementation, monitoring and evaluating results of organizational goals and plans. So I would like us all to just do two things. First of all, everybody who is not muted, I request you to mute your devices so there is no interruption. I would like to mention names, but there are some whose devices are up, so there's a lot of movement. That way we will allow Fiona to take over and simply seamlessly go through. So Doreen and Joseph, please mute your devices so we can have an interrupted flow from Fiona. Fiona, over to you and welcome. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Allow me to share my screen. Good morning, everyone. As I try to bring the screen up, I can just, okay, there it is. I hope everyone can hear me. Anthony, maybe you can confirm, just so that I'm sure.
Yes, I can hear you. This is Joshua, though, not Anthony, but yes, I can hear you.
Thank you, Joshua. All right. Good morning once again. My name is Fiona Nuwamanya. I've been introduced by the previous speaker. I'm glad to be here this morning. I'm honored to have this opportunity. First of all, I'd like to thank AKBF for this series and the previous series, which started, I think, towards the end of last year. I've been joining in since, I think, November. And honestly, personally, I've been really blessed. I've learned a lot. And this is really a very good space, I think, for us as Christians to take dominion in the workplace. You cannot take dominion if you have no knowledge. And so it is my prayer that the different things that we are learning here, that people will be able to take them, albeit in small pieces, at least from every session. If you pick one thing and try to implement it in your business, I'm definitely sure that there will be a change. I will not reintroduce myself, but I'll just, for purposes of this presentation, I'll draw from different examples. As was mentioned, I have previously worked as an auditor, but I also worked as a finance professional, senior accountant, and then finance controller at Medical Access, Uganda. And then I moved into consulting and several other businesses, including a financial services business and business in consulting. And as well into launching Rocket Health, which is a telemedicine company. I hope we've heard about it. I'll draw many of my examples from my experience. So just a quick recap on where we are so far on this topic. We have looked at the overview and the fundamentals of strategic oversight. We looked at building a strategic plan. We did go through how to draft a strategic vision and mission, and the stakeholder engagement, those different stakeholders, who they are, identifying them, and being able to map them in terms of how you manage and treat them. Then setting strategic objectives and using a strategy map, and then implementation and execution. So this will draw from all those different sessions because it's the final stage in strategic management. So just a quick intro to this session. This is really, yes, the final stage in the process of strategic management. And it entails determining the areas of the plan for which we are going to measure. And then we will look at how the strategist or manager in charge is then able to compare the anticipated results of the strategic plan and then make recommendations. Through strategic evaluation, an organization is able to determine whether it's in compliance with its business objectives and goals. Now, when we talk about, when this topic actually first came up, strategic planning and management, and when most people hear that topic, they tend to think that it's a scary word, or it's something big and humongous and only for top level executives. But today I'm here to encourage you that this topic is relevant to even the person with the smallest business. It's just the way we perceive it and the way we explain these different aspects to make them relevant to different businesses. So in this session, we will answer the what, the why, how, and when strategic evaluation is done. So it would be unfair of me to proceed with this presentation without drawing from a biblical perspective. As AKBF, our charge, of course, is to have dominion and be fruitful and multiply. And we are supporting kingdom people in raising kingdom businesses. So it is important that these practices or principles are drawn from the book of life. So first and foremost, evaluation was a process that was set up by God into his scheme of things. And if you look at Genesis, there are those verses that say, and God saw that it was good. How did he see that it was good? He took a step back and enjoyed what he had accomplished. Not that our God requires it, because he is almighty and all supreme, but we don't miss that highlight where he looked back and saw that it was good. As well, in the New Testament, we see the parable of the talents. This is a very common parable, which is used to draw lessons in very many spheres. And here we see Jesus speaking of people who received differing resources, each according to his own ability. This shows the evaluation as those with bad performance and those with good performance. At the end of the story, Jesus says that those who have performed well will be invited into the kingdom, and those that did not do well. And therefore, we see that evaluation is a principle of God. Apologies, my presentation went off. Just give me a second.
It's actually clearer now.
Apologies about that. Can you see my screen? Just please confirm.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can see it. It's a lot clearer now. Leave it like that if you can.
I think before I was using the presenter mode.
Yes.
Is it okay now, or?
No, what you had just before is bigger.
Okay.
Okay, I guess
Yes.
I'll have to use this, but I miss my notes at the bottom.
Oh,
Let me see if I can use. Okay, I think we shall have to use this method to allow me to see the notes at the bottom of the slide.
okay.
Right. So what then is strategy evaluation? So here we've talked about establishment of a strategy, formulation of different strategies, how we implement, and then how we evaluate and control. So basically, this is the entire process. And of course, you cannot control if you do not evaluate. So in most theories, actually, you will find that strategy, evaluation, and control is really one and the same process. So this is the process by which management assesses how well a chosen strategy has been implemented and how successful or otherwise the strategy is. To simply put, strategy evaluation entails reviewing and appraising the strategy implementation process and then measuring organizational performance. So in this process, basically what we are doing is affirming what is good and then seeking to redirect that which is deficient or not acceptable. And strategy evaluation operates really at two levels, at the strategic level, and then of course, at the operational level. At the strategic level, normally the focus is given to the consistency of the strategy with the environment. And then at the operational level, we are looking at how well this company or organization is pursuing the strategy. Why is this concept important? I thought it would be good for us to understand why it is important after we've gone through everything we have learned, setting a strategy, vision, mission, the plan, how you implement it, how you execute it. Why is this particular step important to us? And we know that what gets measured gets done. That's a famous quote. But does it really get done? Those are some of the questions I was asking myself as I was preparing this presentation. But in practice, if you have a task which is not measured, sometimes it actually doesn't get done. If you look at it just on a basic principles level. If the year has just begun, and normally at the beginning of the year, people have personal goals. If you allow me to use a very simplistic approach to it, and someone says, I want to lose weight. Now, if this person does not come up with, for example, the standard, you want to lose weight by how much, or if they're not measuring it, let me say weekly or daily, chances are very high, as research has shown, that this person will actually not be able to meet the target because essentially there is actually no target. And the same applies to organizations, as you will see. So of course, strategy evaluation is important because one, the assumptions that are made during strategy formulation need to be tested to be known whether they are correct. And then also, you need to know whether is the strategy guiding the organization towards achieving its objectives. If you set out and started a bakery, and you went down to the nitty-gritties of coming up with a strategic plan for that bakery, how do you know whether you are walking towards or coming nearer to your plan or your goal and objective for that business? It is also important for us to know whether managers are doing what they're supposed to be doing to effectively implement the strategy. Evaluation is also important to know whether the organization is performing well, whether schedules are being followed, resources are properly being utilized. And also, obviously, it is important for us to know whether there is a need to reformulate or change the strategy. So for example, many organizations were able to change or relook their strategies in the last 3 years only because the pandemic forced most organizations to do that. However, this is supposed to be a principle that is done regularly to check the compliance of processes and work being done towards meeting the results that have been set out, and does not have to be influenced by such a significant external event such as the pandemic. So what then is the process of strategy evaluation? So of course, you cannot evaluate or you cannot measure if you have not established the standards. So first and foremost, you must establish the standards by which this measurement or this evaluation is going to be done. So this goes into identifying key areas of performance, which are usually based on key tasks pertaining to the strategic requirements. So you look at the special requirements that are needed to perform each of these tasks, and then you're able to set a standard. But you can also set a standard basing on benchmarks. So maybe the previous year performance or similar companies in the business, or so you have to set a standard as the first step in evaluation. Performance indicators really is the word most people use. You'll hear words like key performance indicators, key result areas. So those are the words people use when they have set the different standards. And then, of course, the second part of the process is measuring the performance. So the standards of performance that are set, they serve as the benchmark against which actual performance will be evaluated. Now, there are several methods of how performance can be evaluated, and these may vary depending on either the type of business, the level, or the business unit, different data matrices, different products. It could be monetary, number of defects or incidents, and the like. The measures of performance are unlimited and can be tailored to your business. Thirdly, is analyzing variances. In this part of evaluating strategy, basically what you're doing is checking the actual performance, whether it matches with what your target was. And if it does not, if it varies in a negative manner or in a positive manner, this needs to be identified. Because the last step being corrective action, you cannot take the corrective action unless you've identified where the variances are. So the deviation, when you're looking at taking corrective action, you're taking corrective action because you are not on course to meet your strategy or your plan or your goals. And this deviation can be attributed to several factors, which could be either internal, external, predicted, or random. For example, the example of the pandemic that I gave, some could be temporary and some could be permanent. So for example, if you're in a business that is doing, let me say, financial services, and maybe there are issues with payment platforms, which sometimes take, let me say, an extended period of time, 1, 2, 3 weeks or so to be resolved. That may be a temporary issue. So if you look at, for example, if the regulator, Bank of Uganda, comes out and gives a new directive that affects part of your business, then that is a deviation. You would have a deviation that is caused by a permanent issue. Next, on this slide, I draw from the implementation and execution session. If you look at the object on the left, which was called the logical framework, flow, and interconnectedness. So I'm just taking us back to what we've learned so far in these sessions. And first is we look at the goal. And these goals, or each of these goals, is broken down into an objective. And then each of these objectives have activities attached to them. So you can have as many as 10, 20 activities that are linked to a strategic objective. Now, each of those activities has outputs. So if, for example, the first activity is conducting training, courses, and workshops for children, your output would be how many training courses and workshops were offered to children and their parents. Outcomes, on the other hand, would be how many children, for example, passed their exams. Is it enough to say that you've trained 1,000 children? What happens if you have trained 1,000 children and no one has passed the exam? Is that still good performance or is that bad performance? Last but not least, we look at the impact, which really is what we call the result. Have the literacy courses resulted in a better bonding between parents and children? And in those 3 boxes on the right, I try to pick out several other examples. So the third one, for example, is how many bed nets did the organization hand out for malaria prevention in sub-Saharan Africa? It is not enough for us to measure how many bed nets have been given out. For you to know the outcome, you would need to know, has the number of malaria cases reduced, let me say, between January 2023 and December 2022. What we are calling impact is asking ourselves the question, has school attendance increased as a result of fewer incidences of malaria? And those in the NGO sector, I think we'll be able to relate with this particular example that I'm drawing from. So basically what you're saying is that outputs are related to the goods and services that an organization provides its beneficiaries with. And they are the tangible products of our programs or the work that we do. Outputs really do not address the value or the impact of the service that is provided to the beneficiaries. So I'll give you an example. If at Rocket Health, I have a daily sales report that tells me how much of sales we have made, either in the lab or the pharmacy, that really is an output. An outcome, on the other hand, is the impact of good services that an organization's activity has had on its beneficiaries. In the previous example, I talked about the number of malaria cases reducing. So for you to give out 1,000 nets may be good. You may have hit your target of how many nets you wanted to give out, but has it really caused a reduction in the malaria cases? So in outcome, the measurements are quantitative, and this allows the company to monitor changes in performance over time. And it really measures the short and medium-term effects of the activity or the intervention. The impact, on the other hand, defines the primary and the secondary long-term effects, both positive and negative, of a certain intervention or activity. So these effects can be either direct, they can be indirect, they can be intended, unintended, but really what you're looking for is the contribution of that particular intervention or activity to the overall goal. So how do we choose what to measure? I think this is where most organizations struggle, being able to choose what to measure, not only at the strategic level, but also in the more granular, say, individual performance. You find a staff who is doing all these things, or their role is quite diverse, but being able to pick out what exactly needs to be measured, I think is a critical skill and is one of the where a lot of emphasis really should be put. And there's a quote at the bottom which says, if we measure the wrong thing, we will do the wrong thing. If we don't measure something, then it becomes neglected as if the problem did not exist. So it is not only important to measure, but more important is to measure the right thing. So of course, there's several ways on how you can choose what to measure, but particular for this presentation, I picked out just two key principles, which I'm sure you've all heard before. One is the 80-20 rule, I think also known as the Pareto principle. And this principle states that 80% of all outcomes are derived from 20% of our efforts. So if you look at the diagram on the left, in terms of effort, the first circle shows you that if you apply 20% effort on the things that are most important, you should be able to obtain 80% of the result, which is important. And actually, in one of the books I've read, it talks about direct focused energy towards a critical breakthrough. So if you put 20% of your effort on the most important things, it is expected, or research has shown that you should be able to obtain 80% of your results. And this principle has been used to determine the factors that are most responsible for success and then focus on them to improve results. I think I've actually had this rule talked about mostly around relationships. So I digress. They say that if you apply effort and you get 80% of your results, or your spouse is 80% happy, or makes you 80%, satisfies 80% of what you desire, and then the 20% can always take care of itself. The second aspect is on lead and lag measures, which I feel have been explained before, but I'll just do a quick explanation here for those who have not heard these words before. A lag measure is really a measure that evaluates the final goal. And for the longest time in most companies and organizations, we have used lag measures. So an example of a lag measure is saying that I want to achieve sales of, say, $1,000 per day. A lead measure, on the other hand, is a measure that can influence the result, meaning you focus on what influences your outcome. If you say you want to increase your sales by 1,000, if you focus on that, and yet you have you have not defined how you're going to make that move from wherever you are, let me say $200 to $1,000, it is useless for you to measure the lag measure because you have no influence on it. If you look at the picture, this is a picture of a seesaw, and most of you remember when we were young, when we'd go out to play on a seesaw. If you are swinging, is it called swinging? If you are, yes, use the word swing. If you are swinging with an individual that was heavier than you, you had to sort of balance that seesaw by either moving backwards or moving forward. I hope you recall that that principle. So you find that if you're swinging with someone who is heavier than you, then you need to move further back. Yeah, you need to move the lever backwards to be able to move this person. So what we are calling the lever is what we are calling the lead measure, because it is influenceable. It is something we can influence. And then it is predictable. It's something that leads to the goal. And we know that when the lever moves, the rock will move. Critical piece is identifying which lever will be able to move that rock. So next, I'm just going to draw from some examples at Rocket Health, hoping that this will help people to understand the lag and lead measures better. So assuming we want to achieve a daily sales target of 50 million. For me to say or to give staff and members that target, or if we've given that target to ourselves as an organization, that would be a lag measure. And then every day what I'm doing is saying, yesterday we achieved 10 million, today we achieved 5, last week we achieved 3, but I'm not really measuring what the lead measure is. And in this case, imagine I have, so maybe for benefit of all the people on the call, Rocket Health is a telemedicine service, and we provide end-to-end healthcare through voice platforms, chat, and any form of telephone or mobile or any device that can be connected to the internet. So you're able to call to speak to a doctor to take your initial consultation. And the way it works is that the same way when you go to a facility and you see a doctor, they'll ask you several questions. How long have you been feeling like this? Do you have headache? Do you have stomach upset? When was your last menstrual period? So the doctor is able to take you through that consultation, and then possibly, if he thinks you need a lab service, we're able to dispatch a lab technologist, a rider, who is able to come to your place of convenience. So if you're at work or you're at home, they're able to pick your sample, bring it to the clinic and have it tested. And then the doctor would call you back to inform you of the results. And if you need medication, a delivery of pharmacy products would be delivered to you. So back to my example of lag and lead measures. Imagine that I have 20 riders. And each of these riders is picking 8 samples per day. I would like to use the whiteboard. I don't know if I have access to. Joshua, do you know? It's not pulling up on my side.
You should have, because you have been given hosting privileges. It's at the bottom, towards the left, towards the right. Is it not allowing?
It's not accepting. Just let me try again. So I wanted us to do this example practically. Okay, possibly that may not work this morning.
Oh, sorry.
I don't see.
Our tech team, I wonder if they could help let you use it.
Okay, all right. I'll just ask everyone to get their, to get a pen and a paper. So assuming I have 8 riders every day, and each of these riders has been doing, so sorry, assuming I have 20 riders, and each of these riders has been doing 8 field runs per day. And I know that on average, every order, for example, is 5,000 Uganda shillings. What would be a lead measure is for me to say, I want to increase my field runs per person per day from 8 to 12. Because then this is predictable in terms of how much revenue I get per day. So that would be now 20 riders times 12 runs per rider per day times 5,000. So I already know what my revenue would be at the end of the day. And I can even predict if I maintain this level of operation, I can predict how much revenue I will have at the end of the year. So on the screen, I drew other different examples of how you can have lead measures. Instead of, for example, saying increase my daily sales, I can focus on ensuring that 100% of all my doctors achieve a minimum of 50 interactions per day. I can also increase the number of clients by a certain percentage X that purchase a service twice every month, because I know that if I increase, so this lead measure assumes that I know how many clients I have today and I know what they're buying. Now, if I increase that number by 5%, or if I double it every month, then I know what my sales will be. In terms of reducing delays, one of the lead measures can be around ensuring 100% client call requests are completed within an hour. So normally when clients call or send a message to the call center, sometimes there may be delays to call them back. So this is one of the lead measures we are now tracking. And then at the end of the day, you can know. So if you had 1,000 clients but only 50% were called back within the hour, then you know that definitely your service is not good, and maybe tomorrow the number of clients calling back may reduce. And then also, we used to have delays with the client orders have come, or a client has been reviewed by the doctor and you need to deliver some medication, maybe they have a severe headache, but then there are delays related either to, operational issues. So coming up with a lead measure like this, making sure that 100% of all bikes are fueled every morning, and possibly completion of a checklist to say that, yes, indeed, they have been fueled. This ensures that all orders that will come during the day will be fulfilled without any delays. When you look at improving safety and compliance, one of the lead measures is to ensure 100% of all the riders complete a daily checklist on safety gear. So previously we would say ensure no incidents, or improve safety and compliance to improve safety and compliance to riding gear. But then we couldn't measure it. But this, we are able to tell that on average, 80% of all our riders complete the safety gear checklist. And that checklist is able to ask you, do you have your riding shoes today? Are they in good condition? Do you have your jacket? Do you have your helmet? Do you have your uniform? And we have noticed that by tracking these lead measures, we have been able to improve compliance and safety as well. So those are just some examples, and you can be able to, for every particular business, you can be able to go back and see how to come up with the different lead measures that are pertaining to your business or to that area of strategy that you want to evaluate. Okay, so, but how do we actually measure? I know I've talked a lot, but now going into the practicality of it, how do you do it? So as an organization, ideally, you should have systems and tools that support you, and processes that support you in the actual measurement. So different evaluation models have been developed by different scholars and institutions, and these are being implemented by different organizations, and different organizations as well are at different stages of evaluation or using these evaluation models. So by understanding how different these different evaluation models can be used as strategic management systems, we know that both profit and not-for-profit organizations can be able to achieve and to be able to measure and to
it appears Fiona's network has.
Hello, have I been talking to myself?
Unfortunately, yes.
So finally, I can see the whiteboard. I think I needed to log out. I think it needed, logging out and coming back in. Apologies about that. I will continue with the presentation. Please let me know when you can see the presentation again.
Yes, it's on now.
Right. So These models focus on not only on the traditional ways of measuring, but also on the non-traditional, especially the intangible areas such as the marketplace, competition, stakeholders, strategic implementation, and resource management. For a long time, as I had initially said, most organizations have been measuring only financial measures, which we have learned and understood that these are lagging indicators. They fail to provide adequate guidance for actions to be taken today and the day after. So if I say my sales yesterday were 10 million, it has no guidance for the action really to be taken, even if my target was to get 50 million. So am I saying that tomorrow I need to increase from 10 to 50? However, if I translate my actions as the ones I am measuring, i.e., as we have seen, maybe number of riders or number of doctors on shift per day, and increasing these, then you're able to predict better what your final outcome will be. So we have several evaluation models that I was able to come across. One is the balanced scorecard. This was originally developed in the early 1990s. I'm sure many of you have heard of this one. I think this is the most common one. The second is the CIPP model. And this was developed way back in 1966 and was largely used in the education sector. And then there's the TQM, which was developed by early pioneers of quality. And this was mostly used by organizations and companies in the manufacturing sector to ensure that quality was being tracked and improved. I'm also sure that many people have heard about the TQM. There is the Six Sigma model, which originated at Motorola in the 1980s. And then last but not least is the anatomy of performance, which is the most recent, but is also not common. Because of time and for purposes of this presentation, I will focus quickly on the balanced scorecard. So the balanced scorecard has evolved over time into a full performance management system, which can be used both in the private sector and the public sector. And in the diagram on the left, I used a circular presentation, but in most places, you will see the balanced scorecard presented as a matrix or a quadrant, yes, a matrix with 4 quadrants, where you have the internal, you have innovation, you have customer, and then you have financial. So using the balanced scorecard has made sure that organizations are shifting away from just measuring the financial and non-financial performance and are including management and execution of business strategy in the 4 different areas. So internal really looks at what processes should we excel at. And then innovation looks at what should we learn to grow and prosper. Some scholars call this component learning and development. And then you have the customer. How do our customers perceive us? And then lastly, the financial goal. How do we appear to shareholders? For not-for-profit organizations or non-governmental, you could replace shareholders with donors or other stakeholders that may be interested in the financial aspect of the business. So again, drawing from my Rocket Health experience, as I've said, we moved from measuring sales targets per day. And over the last 3 years, we have been implementing and refining our balanced scorecard. So we do have a strategic balance scorecard, which really is drawn from the 5-year business plan. And then we are able to annually be able to break it down to an annual company balance scorecard. And then this is cascaded down to different departments. So each department is able to develop their own scorecard, picking from the company scorecard. And then individuals are able to draw their own individual balance scorecards from the department one. So just ensuring that even to the last person, the scorecard is relevant to them, but it is linked all the way up to the strategic scorecard of the organization. So just a quick example here on the 4 different areas. So what happens is that you give these 4 areas different weighting. So in my example here, I've given internal processes 30%, innovation 15%, customer 25%, and then financial 25% to give us a total of 100. So what we are saying is that at the end of the year, when I am measuring progress on internal processes, this will contribute 30% to my score, depending on if there are, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things to measure under internal processes. Their total weight of the entire scorecard should come to 30%. So here we're asking ourselves, what processes should we excel in? So I'll just give you some simple examples. Assuming that I picked one measure that says pharmacy staff ensure 100% compliance with doctors' prescriptions. This, for example, could be as a result of wanting to make sure that all the orders we deliver to clients are, 1, according to the prescription that was given and are accurate. And one of the things you can do is to streamline how you ensure compliance with doctors' prescriptions. And then 100% of all orders are approved by the pharmacist before they are dispatched. On the innovation side, I could pick a metric that talks about 100% of all new sales staff are trained on using the new tech platform within 3 days of joining the company. And then on the customer side, I could pick 2 different matrices. 100% of all clients served within the 1 hour defined turnaround time. So definitely at the end of the year, when you're measuring or evaluating yourself, or even at the end of every 3 months, and you know that only 50% of your clients are receiving their deliveries within the defined turnaround time, obviously you don't expect to meet your financial goals because you're failing at these other lead measures. So you can be able to use this balance scorecard and tailor it as simply as possible to your type of business. So lastly, I want to look at what commonly goes wrong with strategy evaluation. So here we have wrong design. There are areas where, or there are companies where the performance management system and the tools do not fit the needs of the organization, or the tool is good, but the design of the lead lag measures, as I have mentioned, maybe you're focusing on the lag measures rather than the lead measures. So obviously, if that is the case, then it is difficult at the time of evaluation because the design was not appropriate. Secondly is measurement. We know that one of the biggest challenges in performance evaluation is maintaining objectivity. And as well for an organization, it is hard for leadership to be objective or maintaining objectivity when they're measuring the results of their strategic plans. Because they always have, for lack of a better word, excuses, or they know what was happening, what we call the whirlwind. So they are always explaining the reasons as to why they did not achieve. And then 3, of course, is ignoring the change management system implementation. So you may have set a strategic plan. You have the activities that are supposed to be done. You have the goals and the outcomes that are supposed to be achieved. But some of those areas require you to change certain things within the organization or within the company. So failing to do those changes or to implement those changes, then you're not able to evaluate how well your strategy has worked. Then there is an issue on reporting. Strategy evaluations have some similarity with audit reports, which can deliver bad news. So you find that many times executives or leadership is not very interested in evaluation. And then lastly, lack of leadership, commitment, or lack of ownership. Strategy evaluation and measurement is not a simple task and requires discipline and really objectivity, and it is hard work. So you find that many a time there is lack of leadership commitment to the related tasks, or lack of ownership of different members in the process. And then lack of cooperation, from different teams. Sometimes a business has several different business units, and you find that when it comes to evaluating the different components, there's lack of cooperation from those different units. I would like to beg to stop here and take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. You have done well to try and compress something that will require a lot longer. And thank you. Unfortunately, we're not able to see your whiteboard, but even your verbal illustration was helpful in understanding some of the figures. But thank you so much for bringing us to this point. We are wiser at the end of this session together than we were at the beginning. And we are grateful for all of that. As per our regular promise, we would be stopping at the top of the hour. And so I would like to ask if anybody has any questions, please post them now. And we would like to give 2 or 3 minutes before that, but I don't see any hands up. In the meantime, I'd just like to pass on just some regular announcements. Our drive for the IFU has been running, and it has continued to gain some support. Thank you to everybody who has been regularly supporting, and we're grateful. Updates from management, especially Pastor Anthony, has been regular, so we know where we stand. And our giving platform still remains available, and our numbers are very, very clear. They'll be posted onto our presentation by the technical team. But besides that, Fiona, I would just like to thank you. I honestly do not see any, apart from thank yous, I do not see any questions. If I've missed your question, please remind me. There were a few chats that were going on, but it was like question and answer. One person asks and the other one answers. So it seems like we have, either people have understood very well. Oh, here's a question. Doreen is asking, what method would you recommend for assessing growth of individuals? For example, leaders in a church. That's the only question I have here. Fiona, would you like to take over that one? Can we have strategic implementation, monitoring and evaluation in a church?
Thank you, Doreen, for that question. She's asking, what method would you recommend? I don't know whether that means the models.
Possibly.
What method would you recommend for assessing growth of individuals, for example, leaders in a church? So I think I cannot recommend because each model or each organization has to sit down and really determine what works for them. You may want to use, for example, the balanced scorecard model, but it may not be difficult for you to track all the different matrices across those 4 areas. So I think for a chart, there is the CIPP. Even the balance scorecard can work, but it requires really a lot of data collating and pooling. I don't know if that is helpful. And maybe what I have found and what different speakers have been re-emphasizing during these meetings and presentations is that these different models or matrices or examples that we are pulling are just to help to broaden your understanding and your mind. But you need to go back and query and say, would this work for me or would this not work for me? It really needs to be a tailored approach because there's no one size fits all. Over.
Very good, Fiona. Your last comment nails it nicely. We are having a relatively, I wouldn't like to say crash course, but there's so much information coming down. It requires us to review a lot and then determine what works and what doesn't. You've said it very well.
Yes.
Can you
I see
apply?
A question in my personal inbox asking about where is the place of ESG. So for those who may not know what ESG is, this is environmental, social, and governance, which is a recent, well, in Africa, it's a recent thing that different companies have started tracking. You've all heard about, climate change and the like, and many organizations have started tracking what their impact is on the environment, on the social community, and then, of course, governance. Yes, I do feel that ESG as well can be included as one of the, you can find measures, lead measures that you're able to track around ESG and then put these into your performance system or tool. Someone is asking whether you can apply the balance scorecard at a personal development level. Yes, very much so. The balance scorecard is the easiest model to apply and can be applied at a personal development model. And I'll just quickly give you an example. You can be able to, if you look at, let me say the internal, what process should we excel at? Let me say if your goal, again, going back to the issue of weight loss. So what process should you excel at? You can look at things like daily workouts. I will work out every day for 30 minutes at this time. And then if you go to the innovation or learning and development, what should we learn to grow and prosper? Maybe you can talk about a new way of working out or trying out a new exercise every week or every month. And then if you go to customer and lastly, financial. So you can be able to tailor this balance scorecard to even personal development. Rocket Health experience, what model best suits health facilities and how often should we evaluate? Again, I'll just say that each organization is unique. You can use the balance scorecard or any other model. However, what is important, if you're asking about how often should be evaluated, it depends. There is no standard and there is no one size fits all. Over.
Thank you, Fiona. We are 2 minutes past our deadline, but we needed to let that roll through and come to the end. So someone is asking if the recording can be shared. Yes, it will come through when the team is ready to post it. Thank you, Fiona, again. Now for everybody, I'd just like to bring us to a close for this morning. And I'd just like to pray and let everybody get on with your plan for the day. Father in heaven, I want to thank you, and I'm asking that you will help us to internalize all of this. Give us more insight as we review the information and actually download it, assimilate it into our system, and help us to be a lot more effective moving forward. I ask that you'll bless our day, every single person. For everybody that's going for a doctor's appointment, please give them a good report and even begin the process of healing. For everybody that has any business ventures to get to, make them successful, give them extra insight. And for those of us who have jobs to do, cause us to be successful, and may it be a peaceful day for every single one of us. We ask that you will bless our day and that we'll thank you at the end of the day because you have been good. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. Thank you very much for coming in, and we wish you all a good day. You may leave at your pleasure.
Thank you, Fiona and Joshua.